dead. We're live. We are live. Señoras y señores, ladies and gentlemen, we are live. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a little copy here, and I am going to share this on the Facebook so that people know that we are live now.
Hello, the Facebook.
The Facebook.
Bookface.
We are now live on YouTube. Oh, yeah. Yes. Post. Yo, you see what I did there? I posted.
Look at you.
Yeah, man. Not a lot of people know this, but I post stuff.
You do everything.
I know. Graham, what is it? I do everything.
I do everything. Yep, that's Graham. It's his official title. Master of all.
I am the factotum. They call me the factotum. Yes. All right, so we should get the show on the road, innit? That was like kind of a quick question to you.
Oh, yeah. Let's get rolling. Start your engines.
Oh, your engine.
Put her in neutral. Get her going.
Bang, bang, bang. Go. Yeah. All right. So let's do this.
This is Kickin Streamin Podcast, a binge watcher's guide to streaming movies, TV series, and stuff. Here are your hosts, Graham and Jocelyn.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Kickin Streamin Podcast. My name is Graham, and with me today is, of course, the absolutely fantastic Jojo today with a new hairdo and color. Let's do this, Jojo. Talk to me. Look at this. Look at. You know what? I'm gonna put you on the spotlight right there. So
Yes.
there you go.
Very lovely.
Oh snap! What? I ain't even gonna play with y'all, man. Jojo, talk to me about the decision process on this one, because
I usually go to the stylist. And, she shows me colors, and I'm like, just do whatever you want. So.
Oh, she shows you color, but at the end you're like, yeah, just do your thing.
Yeah, I mean, unless it's like something I'm like, no. But most of the time, she'll just be like, hey, you want to do this and this time? I'm like, yeah, let's do this and this.
Oh my Lord, that is dope, man. Hey, I like. Forgive my dog who decided that this is exactly the precise moment he needs to bark. Like, I can promise you that this dog has not barked all day.
I haven't heard anything out of him in our pre-game,
Exactly.
show game. Yeah. So
Yet here we are. You know, what can I tell you?
He's given his howdy do's.
This is the game he plays, and I can't tell you how it goes. But well, here's the thing. We wanna, obviously, you noticed that last week we weren't here. It was 4th of July weekend in the United States, and we tend to take those few days off, right? Because why not? It's a celebration of America.
America. And I have to, subdue quivering chihuahuas who are terrified of fireworks. So
yes,
it usually takes a couple days to recover.
Yes. It wouldn't have been a couple of good days to record in any way, shape, or form, because first the fireworks are going all around and the dogs that are terrified.
Yeah.
So we skipped that week, and we promise that we're not going to do it again. For the remainder of the year, we are going to continue to give that consistency that we do. So this is our promise to you. And so let's get to the business at hand. Jojo, this week we are reviewing a documentary film on Netflix called Sophie. And I don't know if the people who came up with this, who produced this documentary, understand American psyche, because no one, unless you hear Kickin and Streamin talk about it, is going to go and volunteer to watch something that just has the name of some French lady.
It's very
Now,
true.
who killed Sarah? Yeah.
Yeah.
Who the fuck killed Sarah? Let's find out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yes, Sophie. Who the fuck is Sophie?
Yeah.
You know?
Sophie, and then the rest of it is very, very long too. A murder in West Cork. It's like oh, this is so bland sounding. It's a very, very, very bland sounding story. But to me, I found it fascinating.
Well, absolutely fascinating. This is what we do. We find things that are completely sui generis and that people wouldn't think much of, and we say, let's give it a go.
Yep.
And we did that with this one, and I'm happy that you suggested it, Judge. I'm happy.
I wasn't sure what you would think of it, because with it being true crime and all, but I thought it was a really interesting peek into Irish and French judiciary systems.
Yeah, and so with that said, Jojo, let's just talk about it. Please tell our audience who's who and what's what.
I think your dog wants to tell them.
I swear to you, this is just madness, man.
So we are talking about, it's a 3-part documentary short series. It's called Sophie, A Murder in West Cork. It is available on Netflix. It is about a murder of a French citizen in Ireland. It happened in 1996. And it follows the story of some of the ineffectualism, I would say, of the Irish police and judiciary system. And some of their strong points. It goes for both. And also the idea of the sadness and the ache of an unsolved murder and what it does to the family, especially I think when the family is in another country entirely, and it's not really, there's a completely different set of rules for the country that they are in. So outcomes that they are expecting and information that they are expecting does not come through, because it's a whole different kettle of fish, if you will. So it does follow a little bit of Sophie's life, a little bit of what happened to her, and her family and the aftermath of this. And it was in 1996, and it is still unsolved. So it's very, very interesting, in my opinion.
Yeah, I like this documentary, but the first and one of the first thing that struck me is that there are a number of reasons why this crime has not been solved.
Yes.
So the main reason of it, of all, is police incompetence.
Yes.
And we're gonna go into it a little bit, but like I said, I would not have watched it. Had you not said, we should give it a go, right? So did you read something about it before stumbling upon it, or were you just going around?
I was just kind of in the depths of Netflix looking for something to watch, and it popped up, and it started a preview. I think it had sat there for a second while I was looking at something on my phone, and the preview started, and I was like, this looks very, very interesting. Like this seems like it could be a very interesting story. So I decided to just give it a shot, and it kind of grabbed me within the first 5 minutes, and took it from there. And I did enjoy the fact that, to me, it didn't seem to be horribly sensationalized. You never see her body, which I think is a wonderful thing for a documentary. So often they show you the person after they're dead and the aftermath and, crime scene photos and things like that. And I feel like that's something that Americans at least have come to expect in a true crime story. And I do feel that's kind of sad, because although we are learning and discussing this person because something horrible happened to them, I feel like we should be focusing on the person that they were before they were horrifically murdered, not necessarily what was left after that event.
And to your point, I think that was done very perfectly. Like there was a dignified way that Sophie Toussaint du Plantier was always spoken of, and both on the end of the family, and as a matter of fact, even on the end of the person who, until today, was the suspected murderer. And so we this is what we're gonna go into it a little bit, but let me do a quick reset here. Once again, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Kickin Streamin Podcast. My name is Graham. With me today is, of course, my venerable and absolutely fantastic Jojo, my co-host, and we are addressing Netflix's Sophie, The Murder in West Cork. And as you've heard on a brief explanation, this is a documentary that navigates the horrific murder of a French citizen named Sophie Toussaint du Plantier, who owned a home in the town of Schull in West Cork, Ireland. It was sort of a vacation home, wasn't it, Judge?
Yeah, it seemed like it was sort of her refuge, her base to be solitary and kind of recharge and become herself again. It sounded like she very much valued her privacy and her ability to be alone. She liked to be alone sometimes, and that was her escape.
Yes, and so I think a couple of things happened here, and that in itself derailed everything about this murder. Is that one? It happened. Well, any time that there's a murder, it shocks society as a whole.
Of course.
But it happened in a very small town where the word murder was simply not part of the vocabulary. It was a very, very, very small Irish town where, even though people, you couldn't say only the locals knew each other very well, but because it was such a place for expats to come together and be themselves or whatever, it has so many little pockets of expat communities that there were a lot of strange people there too. But at the same time, the town was tolerant enough to welcome everybody, which is what they say, which is to a certain extent the truth.
Yes.
Except that there's tolerance and there's tolerance.
Yes.
And there was one particular man whom I believe not only the police targeted, but the town targeted. And his only sin is that he was an annoying, narcissistic asshole.
Yes, and it's the decisions, it's sort of divided the town, I believe, as to who believed he was guilty and who believed he was just an asshole. Because I did like, the fact of, just because he is a narcissistic, borderline personality disorder, doesn't necessarily make him a murderer. It might. I actually, in watching this, thought about our discussion in the movie with Jared Leto and
yes.
and Denzel Washington, and I thought about our discussion with that, because I was like, this kind of feels like the same sort of thing. Like, it could be like, are we really going after this guy because he did it, or are we going after him because we don't like him? because he clicks all of our boxes.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing. So we are talking about the character. In fact, I think much of the documentary is focused so much more on him than the person who got murdered, and we're seeking justice for, Sophie. So his name is Ian Bailey. And when you watch this, we're not giving you any spoilers here.
No.
We're just setting up for you a scenario so that you understand, because the documentary does not necessarily have an agenda. I think pretty much the documentary let things set the course and take their own course. But at the same time, we like to have an interlocutor telling us not necessarily what to think, but here's what you should be thinking now, and here's what happened, and here's what didn't happen. You don't have that. This is the real true crime documentary without a narrator, without somebody setting up the agenda or setting up the course of where things go. It just tells you a story by intertwining a lot of smaller stories.
Yes.
So there's a lot that we could talk about this in the course of an hour, and we're still not going to spoil it for you. I can promise you.
It's very, very true. Very true.
It's like it's the most intertwined, crazy, batshit documentary I've seen in a long time. But let's talk about the possible culprits. One of my biggest problems with the way the investigation is conducted is the fact that once whoever decided this weird guy must be the one who did it, there was never any other potential culprit. And everybody else that they looked at so briefly that you could tell that they just wanted to just get back to harassing Ian Bailey. So in your mind, Jojo, who could have done this of all the characters?
I don't know. I don't subscribe to the theory that it was a hit person from France or anything like that. If they were the hit person, whoever hired them needs to get their money back, because they did a terrible job.
Yeah.
But I don't know, because it almost felt like it was someone local that she sort of knew that maybe came over and enticed her outside. And by local, I mean like a true local, not what did they call them? Wash-ups or something like that? Or
yes, they have a name. They have a name for expats. Yes, it's pretty funny too.
Yes, it was. But I felt like it was more likely to be somebody like that than Mr. Bailey. I don't know. It just didn't ring. Although he has a history of violence and he has a history of being a really terrible person, a genuinely terrible person, it simply to me didn't fit with anything that he has done in the past. They really never were able to prove that they had a link to each other. Yeah. And to me, I don't see him bashing somebody's head out on a rock that he didn't have a very close relationship with. I do see him bashing somebody's head out with a rock because he's essentially done that to his partner before. Yeah. But I without there being a very strong connection to someone, I don't think that he would have done it.
You know, we agree. I agree with everything. I don't believe that this was the work of a hitman, because it was violent and there was suffering.
Yes.
A hitman will just do the job and get the fuck out.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, there's no reason. Whoever killed Sophie had rage.
Yes.
Whether momentarily or a burst of it that probably had never happened to them before, but there was rage there. It was extremely violent, and so there was no sexual assault.
No.
So that opens up the possibility that it could easily have been a female killer too.
I will say that was actually my first thought was, what if this was a jealous wife,
Right.
or a jealous partner, or someone like that? It did feel very personal to me, and it felt, as you said, a lot of rage. So I did think of that too. I was like, that was one of my first thoughts, was this is somebody was like, I think you're
You're
you know,
Jezebel or some
yes,
shit.
yes,
You know.
exactly. Because there were so many rumors about her that were all apparently totally untrue. But if you get that into someone's head who's unstable anyway, and they decide, oh, my husband looked at you, or you looked at my husband, or you don't put curtains on your bedroom at night, so therefore you're trying to get attention and people to look at you. I don't know, some sort of like prudish, not, that's the wrong word that I'm looking for, but like let's remove this temptation from our town, and let's clean the town and get this horror out of it.
Yeah. And the reason I say this is because, one, we talked about the violence, and it wasn't somebody who felt like they needed to surprise her and go into the house and hide and wait. The person, here's my conjecture, is someone came and started calling her out, right? And it could be done because her house was so remote that no one else would have said, let me open my window and see who's there yelling, for this French lady to come out.
Yeah.
The French lady comes out and start to, reason with whoever it was. That person couldn't see reason. And this lady is talking to me, trying to speak my English with her horrible French accent. That's it. I'm done with you. Bang, 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 bang. A fight ensues. And boom. And again, the house is remote enough for anybody to just, that's it, I'm out.
Yeah.
Because her body was not discovered until at least 12 hours.
Yes.
After the crime had been committed.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
But no one considered any other possibilities. Their only possibilities were, if it happened in Schull, Ireland, it was Ian Bailey. If it was anybody from Schull, Ireland, it was Ian Bailey. If not, it was somebody from France. It was a hitman. Everything, they were Hollywoodizing this shit so much that they blew it.
Yeah.
They blew it because they didn't approach everything with a calm head and say, let's follow every single theory.
Yeah. And I think that to some extent he is responsible for some of that, because he did put forward the idea of, oh, it was a French hitman, or oh, she had multiple male callers, which was not true. There's a link between her husband and some sort of mafia or something like that, which was untrue. And I think that he called attention to himself being so narcissistic. I think it was almost a one in your eye to the cops. Like, I'm going to say all this stuff, and I know you don't like me, but I'm going to say all this stuff, and maybe you'll come after me, but I didn't do it, so I know it's fine. Yeah, I don't really think that he had the guts to do something quite as cold-blooded, in the sense of the way it was done. I know it was done in rage. I know it was done in murder, but it wasn't, I don't know how to quite describe what I'm trying to say. It wasn't there didn't seem to be a relationship with anyone that caused this to happen, a previous relationship. She didn't complain about anybody to anyone. She didn't say, oh, I have this reporter who won't leave me alone, that kind of thing. So it feels like someone harbored a grudge against her for a very long time, and then it just exploded one night. Like something happened and it just exploded.
Yeah, somebody harassed her. She probably didn't make much of it. She probably thought, yeah, this is some crazy person that yells at me from time to time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Sometimes people hit you just because of the fact of you being new.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You're new in town. I don't know you that much. I'm gonna make a lot of theories in my head about who you are and what you're up to and what about you, and that in itself could get you killed.
Yes.
And
I know there was a lot of discussion about, oh, this town is so open-minded and open-armed and everything like that, but I don't think that you can apply that to such a small, isolated area in the 90s to every single individual that lives in that town. There might have been an overall welcoming feeling, but to me, there is always, in some place that small, that isolated, and that in that time period, there is always going to be someone who is going to be very, very close-minded and very much into, it's Irish people only, it's Catholicism only, it's this only. I don't believe that every single person in that town was like, oh yeah, this is wonderful and great, come live here.
Yeah, and the other thing is that the whole idea of them being open-minded and really welcoming, that's what they think of themselves.
Yes, that too.
That's the other thing too. It's very convenient for you to say, man, we are very, it's the whole, I'm not trying to be mean, but I'm not racist, but I'm not homophobic, but do you know what I mean? Yeah. Because you don't want to think of yourself as a person or group of people with certain phobia or certain things. Yeah. So they said that about themselves. But my conclusion was, I remember telling my wife, I said to Christine, the only reason this is going so far is because despite what this town think of themselves, they are, all of them have something to say about Ian Bailey. And it is how much he annoys them, how much they dislike him. But it wasn't, I hate the guy. It was just this fucking guy. So Bailey was this fucking guy. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
Like, this guy has never done anything offensive to me, but I don't like him.
Yeah.
That was the conclusion. Oh, he stops the music and recites poems and shit. And there was one lady who even had a cultural beef with him. The fact that he was an Englishman who came to a small town in England and tried to appropriate himself as an Irish poet and shit. Like, everybody had a grudge. And because of that grudge, if there was anybody who had, from this town, who had to be pegged as a freak, as a murderer, let's give them the annoying guy. Especially because this shit is bringing some negative international connotation to us, and we don't want it.
Yeah. And I will say that I didn't like him either. I mean, every single interview with him, I wanted to punch him in the face as hard as I possibly could. And I do agree that he was a complete and total asshole. I don't think he was anything but that. The fact that he put his partner in the hospital many times, he should be in jail. But I don't think he should be in jail for the murder of Sophie. I don't think he was involved in that. I do think he should be in prison for what he did to his partner and has apparently continued to do to his partner. But I do not believe that he was responsible for her violent murder. And that's what it all comes down to, is just because someone is genuinely a bad person does not mean that they should have the sins of someone else foisted upon them.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. The fact that Ian Bailey never went to jail for what he did to his partner, the town is to blame. The authorities in the time is to. Here's the reason why. You know, if somebody murders another one, right? No one is expecting the murdered person to press charges. You murdered someone, you get arrested, and you go to jail, right? You go through the process of justice and you go to jail. The notion that this guy is gonna fuck off half the life out of his partner, right? But he's going free because she's not pressing charges.
Yes.
She has the black eyes. She has you.
Yes.
You have evidence that what he did, he did.
Yes.
I don't give a shit. She's not pressing charges.
Yes.
This is a societal offense. I don't know if it's as grave. I don't know the measurement to that. But you wouldn't have said, well, the murdered person is not here to press charges, so there's nobody like. That's not the way shit should work. And it only works that way because it's a woman, so we have to.
Agreed.
Agreed. That's what bothers me the most about this.
No, I told my husband about it too. When I watched it, I was like, the fact that it comes down to that she didn't charge him, that he's not in jail, is disgusting to me, because that should not ever be. If you've essentially almost killed someone, because he fractured her skull, he knocked her eyeball out of her head, and they had to put it back in. If it comes down to an assault that is that bad, then that should be taken out of the person's hands who was assaulted, because there is no possible way they can make a proper decision. One, because they're probably under the influence of who knows how many painkillers and all, having all these horrible things happen to them. And two, if they've gotten to the point that they're in a relationship with somebody who treats them like that, they will never be able to think clearly until they've had a very significant amount of time away from that person. And they may never be able to again. So it needs to be taken from their hands and given to the responsibility of someone who is a disinterested, dispassionate party to say, this is severe enough that this person is going to kill you next time. We're going to charge him with attempted murder.
I couldn't have said it better, because that's simple. It is simple as that. I don't see the point of saying, yeah, but she's not pressing charges. Like, who gets mad? Like, who in society takes the side of the battered woman? You know what I mean? Like really? Yeah. Look, man, if you don't want to testify, that's fine. But we already have you as evidence.
Yes.
Once we take pictures of what you look like at the hospital,
we have the doctor's reports and reviews and x-rays and things like that, then you are the evidence. You don't have to testify.
Exactly. So let's talk a little bit about Sophie's family, because some of these motherfuckers were weird too. You know.
They were.
Yeah.
I kind of had a soft spot for all of them, though. I don't know why. I kind of.
No, I like them. My heart goes out to Pierre-Louis, the son.
Yes.
The two parents. You could see how even so many years later they were still absolutely devastated.
Yes.
But there was that aunt who thinks of herself as some kind of gypsy tarot reader. She is as narcissistic and as fronting as Ian Bailey. She was the Ian Bailey version on the side of Sophie's family. You know,
she was
the crazy thing is, like, she was the star on Sophie's family. You know, she had the very extremely dark black hair thing going on. Like, seriously, this was some lady that you could have found somewhere, you know, in Romania, telling you, you can't say that you're going to die in 2015. You know,
she was the one that was talking about the hand and the leg, right? Wasn't that her? Okay.
Yeah. Like, my mother read her hand and told her, you are going to die at 40. I'm like, she is still trying. She's trying to insert herself in there in a way. But then she talks about Ian Bailey, like Ian Bailey is such a narcissist, such love the camera. Is
I-
he going to... Il aime très bien d'être interviewé, Monsieur Bailey, là. Il va parler avec vous parce qu'il aime ça très bien. And I'm like, well, that's exactly what you're doing. You love being interviewed, do you? You know what? Shut up. It was
I loved
funny,
that
man.
part when she was like, oh, he loves to be interviewed or whatever, whatever it was translated as or interpreted as. And he, it just cracked me up because I was like, well, you're kind of the same. Takes one to know one, I guess.
That's amazing to me, And the other thing is that also they tried to pin the thing on Sophie's husband at the time, right?
Yes.
Only because he was kind of like a older weirdo too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, you know what? People understand this. People have the right to be weird. That does not make them murderers.
It doesn't even necessarily make them bad people.
At all. At all.
No.
At all. That's
really,
the thing. You can be an asshole. Like, you can be.
Yes.
Not every asshole is a bad person.
Exactly. Sometimes assholery is called for.
Yeah. And this dude, he had his thing going on. And also, I think there's the stigma of, he's the older dude with the young hot wife.
Yeah.
And he's got to be really extremely jealous. This is that was like confident enough to marry this woman, and like somebody said, oh, she was his third trophy wife. I think that's disrespectful to Sophie more than anything else.
I do too, very much so.
She wasn't a trophy.
She was not. She was a producer. She was an artist in her own right. She was. I wish that they had touched a little bit more on her work because it was interesting, the little bit that they did talk about her work. I would have liked to know a little bit more about, but it sounds like he fully supported her. The fact also to me that says that she wasn't a quote unquote trophy wife is she did leave him. She had a long-term relationship with someone else.
Yep.
And then went back to her husband. If she was simply a trophy wife, he would have been like, get to the door, go on. I found some blonde lady and we're
I got the fourth one.
Right, exactly. I got a fourth one and she's 10 years younger than you. So go on, get, so I think that he truly had feeling for her. And the pictures of him, I mean, I do wish that he had been interviewed a little bit, but the pictures of him at the funeral, he just looked completely devastated to me. Yeah. And the fact that he did not go to Ireland to view her body, the police made such a huge kerfuffle about. And I just was like, sometimes there's things you can't do.
Of course.
Just because you can't do them doesn't mean that you're unfeeling or uncaring. It can be exactly the opposite. You feel and you care too much, and you know that you can't do that, and you've got to hold things together for her son.
Jojo, we've had this conversation, you and I. We've talked about how everybody thinks that there's a playbook for grieving.
Yeah.
And to anyone who thinks so, fuck you.
Yes. Amen.
Because that's the kind of shit that put innocent people behind bars.
Yes. Because
in your view, they didn't cry enough, they didn't look distraught enough, or they cried too much, or they were way too overreacting and shit.
Yeah.
There is no playbook for grieving.
No.
This man just learned that his wife died in a horrific way and he wasn't there.
Yes.
He wasn't there. He wasn't. That was his thing, is that she died alone away from me.
Yeah.
And now I feel like I should have been there.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, like, no, man, not everybody is ready to go and identify a body, because the uncle said that he was the one who went and identified it, and he said, I knew it was her, but I couldn't say it was her. And immediately I thought, my sister can't see her daughter like that. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Not everybody has that heart.
Yeah.
Not everybody has that heart.
Yeah.
You know, when my mother passed away, 2 years ago. When I went to Haiti, um, I went to the morgue and I was making the funeral arrangement, and the funeral guy told me, if you want, you're gonna have a moment. We can go and pull the slab out and show you, so you have a moment to see her. And I was like, no, man, I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm good.
Yeah.
And I was the son that was away. I hadn't seen my mother for a few years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that would, many would have thought, oh, well, this was an opportunity for you to, and I couldn't. And for, I had, when I learned of my mother's passing while I was here, I cried. But after that, this, stoicism just hugged me, and I got this valor. I went to Haiti and blah, 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 and confronted everything. But I cannot tell you how it broke me that morning of the funeral when I entered that church and I saw her. That's when I bloody lost it. So imagine, like, grief comes at people in different ways. There's no playbook for grief. And people have to stop believing that he should have acted somehow. You should act somehow. You should do this. You should be that. You should be dying. You should be calling her name. No. Because again, there are a lot of people right now that may have been accused of killing their wives, their mother, their parents, because they didn't act a certain way when they learned something. Yeah. So grief, let people do their grief the way they can, they can cope.
And the time frame too, because there's plenty of people who seem to think, oh, well, you need to be crying in this amount of time. If you're not crying within 5 minutes, you're heartless. Or if you're still crying 4 weeks later, would you get it together?
Yeah. So, these are the same people that tell you, like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
That's enough of that already.
Yeah. So it's grief is such a personal experience, and nobody's is the same. It is completely and totally about your relationship with the person who died, about the way you felt about them, the way they felt about you, things that were not said, things that were said. There is absolutely no playbook for grief. There is no guidebook. There is nothing. There may be quote unquote stages of grief. I know there's been things where people talk about that, but that's never anything that should be considered an ironclad rule. I think that is there as perhaps a way to help people who feel like they aren't normal because they aren't where they think they're supposed to be for grief. But it's never going to be what anybody thinks it's going to be. One, yourself, you're not going to act the way you think you're going to act. And two, anybody that tries to tell somebody else how they should feel about someone that they genuinely loved, they need to go fuck themselves.
Simple as that. Yeah. I couldn't have said it any better. So let's talk a little bit about the way justice worked in this case. I am grateful for the system for the jury system, but more than anything else, I'm grateful for the step before that must be taken before somebody is indicted in Ireland. And it is the review from the is it DPP they call it?
DPP, yeah. I'd never heard of such a thing.
So basically, it is somebody who has law enforcement knowledge, but is also a lawyer. They take the report from all of the investigation, analyze it based on the law, and then they decide whether or not the investigation was done properly enough and has gathered enough evidence to convict, to indict this person.
Yes.
And that's one huge step that I think is important, and we should actually have and adopt in the United States, because too many times, the detectives, the police have already decided the culpability or innocence of people, and basically make it happen to the point where by the time it gets to a court, it's already been decided.
Yes.
It's already been decided. Everything is inclined for this person to be convicted without. I mean, come on. How many people in the United States aren't doing time on circumstantial evidence?
So many. So many.
And there are states that will allow you to be killed, will allow you to be executed based on circumstantial evidence.
Yes.
And this did not happen here. And I love it. I love it. I love it. Now, I kept getting angry at Ian Bailey for poking the bear.
Yes.
Yes.
Ian Bailey is not a smart man. He thinks he's a smart man.
I think he thinks he's the smartest of all.
Yes, I think
but he's an asshole.
Yes, he is not a smart man, and there's There's nothing more dangerous than willful. Was it will? No, stupidity without the knowledge that you're stupid. I can't quite remember the quote.
Yeah.
But,
makes sense.
I will say to the DPP that I found some of the comments that were made on the report that he made in the decision to not. I think he made the right decision, but I think some of his comments and some of his worldviews were a bit wrong and outdated.
Yeah. Yes.
I do think that he came to the right decision,
Yes.
but I feel that if something like that were enacted, it needs to be more than one person, like maybe a small panel of disimpassioned people who are removed from the case to look at. But there were certain things, because when they brought up the evidence that that Ian Bailey would beat up his partner regularly, it was essentially something like, well, haven't we all beat our wives at one time or another? And I was like, God.
Unfortunately, these things happen all the time, and I'm like, what?
Well, she's
Unfortunately,
right.
these things happen all the time.
They do happen all the time, but I was like, that's not, oh God. No.
That shouldn't justify anything,
No. But I do agree that there should be another step before the process of going to trial. But I just, because to me, it sounded as though this gentleman, it was just one gentleman. It kind of sounded like it was a life position, because when they showed the picture of him toddling out with his little double canes, not that means he's not intelligent or anything like that, but I felt like that all he did was just sit in a room all day and read cases. And I was like, you need to get out more, dude.
and it's a lot of power, Jojo. That's the thing.
Yes.
That's why I agree with you with the fact that it should be a panel. And you know how I feel about lifetime appointments.
Yes.
Because power corrupt.
Yes.
That's a fact.
Yes.
When you've done something for so many years, you think you belong there. You belong on that chair, and your decisions start to become to take a godly worldview.
Yes.
In the sense that it's going to happen like this because I said so, and there's nothing you can do because I'm here for life.
Yes.
Now, I don't know if the DPP position is a for life position, but in a small town like that, it might be a for life position. In a small town like that, any government position might be a for life.
It's like, well, there's nobody else to do it, so here you go.
Let's vote for this motherfucker again.
But
you're right.
I can't remember what I was gonna say. I had a thought, but it went away. Poof. That hasn't happened in a while.
Yeah, man. But hey, we all been there. Unfortunately, those are things that happen.
Yes. Yes. Unfortunately, those are one of
As
those things that happen.
yeah, as the DPPs, like I wanted to meet his wife. I'm like, ma'am, how many times has this nigga beat the shit out of you? Because he says in his report
Fortunately.
that unfortunately these are things that happen. Has he done that to you? You know, but
I know what I was going to say. I don't, if you've ever done office work, you will know that there will always be a little bitty at a desk somewhere who has worked there for 60 years.
yeah,
and she does things her way. Things will only ever be done her way. She
yeah,
is not open to anybody else's opinion or the way anything else is done. She will only ever do it the way she does it. And she's essentially there for life.
yeah,
And to me, it was kind of the same correlation with that I'm here for life. This is my opinion. And if you're not exposed to other things, and if you're not willing to be exposed to other things, you will eventually be like, well, I know everything and I know the best way for it to be done because I'm the one who's been doing it and it works. So obviously it must be right.
yeah. Like those ladies at work that won't get used to Epic and complain, why did they have to take Da Vinci away? Y'all don't know what I'm talking about, but I
I'm old enough to remember when people would say, when the biddies would say, I want my typewriter. I don't want this stupid computer.
oh, really?
I need my book. I need my book. I really need my book, my paper book that I would write things in for patient appointments. So
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about justice in France. Because what a load of bullshit. What a load of bullshit. You know, convicted in absentia. Really? So dude doesn't even get to defend himself. You get a bunch of not subjective evidence and testimonies. And as a matter of fact, there was a theory that surged a little more than 20 years after the murder that no one thought should have come about before, which was, I got a phone call from her where she told me, yo, I'm here because I need to meet with this guy who's a poet and he wanted to talk about his book. And I'm like, y'all never said that to the Irish folks.
Right. Right.
How are you
taking
coming up
years
now?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it may have been true, Georgia, but like I have to think, y'all motherfuckers making this up. I'm just saying, 20 years later, y'all niggas be making this shit up. I mean, come on.
I do wonder with the case of, because that was the friend, right? Her close friend.
Yeah, the friend and that other guy, Charbonnet.
Yes.
Is it Charbonnet? No. Yeah. Charbonnet was Charbonnet the lover, or
he was the lover.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was the friend and another male friend of hers. It wasn't Charbonnet. But
part of me wondered if it wasn't, I want to help the family. I want to do something. I want them to not feel pain anymore. And the human brain is so strange.
Yeah.
It is very strange. And she may have been thinking about that conversation a lot. And something in her head suddenly said, we're going to create this memory of
Exactly.
we had this conversation. She may not be lying in the sense of that she fabricated this story with any intent of anything. She may genuinely believe this is a memory, and it may genuinely be a memory. But part of me feels that she feels so much guilt because she did mention that she couldn't go with her. She was one of the friends that was called that she couldn't go with her. And, you have the guilt of, I could have been with her and maybe I could have stopped it.
On the other hand, her ass would have been dead too. I'm just saying.
That's what I think. That's what I think too. Because I know the aunt too was like, I should have gone. I'm like, you'd be dead too, lady.
Yeah.
I mean, either they would have killed you too, or you would have keeled over because you're.
And the end is like, I didn't go because I had a cold.
Yeah.
Whatever, dude. Okay.
Whatever. But I do wonder that, especially about the friend, if it wasn't if it wasn't, I want to help the family, I want to do something. And if her brain didn't just sort of dredge something up that may or may not have been true. But I just didn't get the impression from her that she was someone that was a liar or someone that was dramatic or anything like that. The friend to me seemed very pragmatic,
Yeah.
and except when it came to that one bit of story, I was like, I'm kind of giving you a pass on that because I think your brain made that up because you wanted to help so badly.
Yeah, that's like in that sense, I wasn't too hard on them. I was just saying what I kept saying to myself was like, it's just strange that you
Both of them.
remember that now,
Both
and
of
then
them.
the other dude decided that he was going to remember that one there too. Because the younger cousin, right? He said, I received a phone call after she got to Ireland. I received a phone call from her, but I didn't get the call. And to this day, I wonder what she would have wanted to talk about. What was she calling about? That's a completely different thing. That's a what if situation where you're saying, I wish I had taken that phone call. I wish I had
Yes.
taken that phone call, and maybe if she had a feeling and had asked me, "Hey man, can you come? Can you come and stay with me for a few days?" Maybe I would have done that, and none of that would have happened.
Yeah.
It's all of those what if that goes to mind.
Yes.
But the notion that, oh, it's been 22 years, but now that I remember, she did call me one time and tell me, well, the reason why I'm in Ireland today is because I'm here to meet with this guy. And I told her, don't meet with him alone. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think, as you say, Judge, the mind is playing some trick there. I don't necessarily think that this lady, I don't know the dude, but I don't necessarily think that this lady is making shit up. Well, intentionally making shit up.
Exactly.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
But here's the thing.
I did find the idea because I know and knew absolutely nothing about the French justice system, but the idea of a bouquet of evidence. I can't remember the term. I'm sure you know what it is, but I found that totally fascinating. I was like, I've never heard of such a thing in my life. That's just bizarre and weird and neat and awful at the same time.
It is bizarre because, but you all you can see there is the idea of a justice system that was created for the benefit of a king, for the benefit of it was a justice system that was created during the time of feudalism. Our friends have must always come on top. So all they have to present to us is a bouquet of evidence, and we will always decide in their favor.
It's fascinating. Completely
because
fascinating.
because that's stupid. And the notion that through the years that justice system has not been revised
Or evolved or anything. Like
exactly.
I like the idea of someone's in the sense of I'm thinking of the American justice system.
Mhm.
Not always, but typically if someone has had a past of I'm going to use rape as an example, has had a past of raping people. And they come to trial, that evidence is not always of their past actions, is not always allowed into the case of their latest action. And if it's something that correlates nearly exactly to what they've done, I feel that that is an injustice. Because although I know that we are just talking about this one particular case, if someone has a history of doing the same type of thing to the same type of people, I feel that that should be allowable as evidence. That's just me personally. So I do like that idea because I just don't think that, someone who people have gotten off for things that they did do, we usually talk about folks who have gotten off for things that they didn't do, which I think happens, or have been convicted of things that they did not do, more so than the other way around. But I
Right.
do think that it does happen more so in crimes against women, um, when you don't take a pattern of behavior into account. Um, you could even take the Cosby case as a bit of an example of that. So many complaints, so many actions, so much circumstantial proof, so much actual proof, but we can only use a few of these cases. And then, even though we get a conviction, all of that can be thrown out because of one technical mistake at some point down the road. I do like the idea of there being the ability to say, this person does this. This is what they do. And we're going to show you why this is what they do.
Yeah, but I do think that there's a slippery slope there, and the reason I think the reason I think so is because once that is allowed, a prosecutor, if he knows that his case is weak, he might
It's true.
never
They can dig up.
attempt to prove his case,
It's true.
but
Can dig up
rather
everything.
bring up everything else.
It's true.
So the justice system is not perfect, and the English justice system that we practice here isn't perfect, and the Americanized English justice system we practice here is full of holes. But I was born in Haiti. I grew up in Dominican Republic. Most of Latin America practice sort of like the French justice system, right? A jury of your peers has nothing to do in determining whether or not you did it or didn't do it, but just some old, bloated prostate asshole of a judge sits there and just listens to evidence, and depending on how it's feeling that day and how low or how highly he thinks of you based on your class or your race or your education, he decides you did it or not. And so, I would always pick that sort of justice system where there's 9 people, 12 people, 5 people who can listen, and one of them at least have to object and say, wait a minute, the hell was that? Are we really going to believe this? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with that there should always be more than one person making a decision, because one person making this decision, as you said, it could come down to the fact that they had indigestion that day. They could have early onset dementia that is not showing in other ways. Each individual person has their own biases, their own beliefs. There's nobody that is impartial entirely.
Yeah, exactly.
Judges are supposed to be, but that's completely impossible because we're human beings. Unless the judge is a computer, you don't get someone who's completely impartial. So you certainly need the checks and balance of many people looking at something to say, based on my life experience, there's no way this could happen, or, that kind of thing.
And that, my friend, is what I am saying. Because I mentioned that I was born in Haiti, and I know there's at least twice in every episode I say that, I feel like I have to, before we end, just talk about this a little bit. On the week that we are recording this podcast, earlier that week, the president of my country of birth, Haiti, was assassinated by a group of mercenaries, most of them from Colombia. And his wife was mortally wounded, gravely wounded, but so far has been receiving treatment in a hospital in Fort Lauderdale. She was transported to the United States, and she is still she's stable, but still in critical condition. This issue for me and for every Haitian, whether s- some of those who were supporters of the president or not, is is a matter of shame, because with all of our faults and with all of our political turmoil, our country is a sovereign nation. And the idea that a group of foreign mercenaries entered the country and managed to enter the private residence of the head of a nation and killed him is unheard of, and like I said, I don't care how you feel or how you felt about this guy, but as Haitian, I pray that justice is done for what just happened. But also, my wish to you, wherever you are, is that something like that never happens in your country, because I can tell you that that day I felt like I could crawl under the bed and never come out, because it's not right. I'm not saying that I would have been happy if it were, Haitians that killed the Haitian president. No, that's not what I'm saying. It's not. It's not. I don't condone the assassination of a president by the hands of anyone. I'm just saying that there's something that is extremely broken in a nation where foreign mercenaries can go into the private residence of a president and kill him. And the international community, the United Nations, United States of America, AL, y'all should look in the mirror and understand how much you've done, how much you've contributed for the incessant chaos that keeps happening in Haiti. Because history is not going to judge you guys well. Because one thing we do know as Haitians is our history. And we know what you've done. And we know why things are the way they are. Right. So, I'm sorry I got too serious here, but it's just, this was weirder than coup d'etat, weirder than earthquake, weirder than hurricanes, weirder than every single thing that is disgraceful that has happened in Haiti. This one, I never saw it coming. I never thought it would happen. So here we are. Should we say goodbye on that note, Jojo?
I have no words for you, Graham, except my heart goes out to you and the people of your country and your family.
Thank you. Those are words that will always mean a lot to me, and I was, hearted and happy that you reached out. A friend of mine with whom I've had some serious discussions before, and I told him that, for as long as I can remember, when I was a kid growing up, and for the better part of my adulthood, I've thought, I'm gonna go back to my country and run for president. And he called me and said to me, for the love of God, stop it. Don't do it. Don't ever do it. And I know where he was coming from, and I felt it, because it was on the same day, and he's like, I don't want to say it's not worth it, but I'd like to see you die in your bed when you're old or something. So, those were the two calls or the two communications that I received from friends, which was you and my friend Franz. And I appreciate that, because it was a crazy day, and I don't want to make it about myself. I don't. But I didn't know how to feel. I just didn't know how to feel. It was weird, it was weird. I was angry and sad. And this is a dude that I only ever saw on TV or, on newspapers and stuff, So I the first time I heard the sound of his voice was actually on some video that was on Facebook of an old presidential address that he gave. That's how little I knew about him in terms of his politics, in terms of his actions as a president. Of course, I keep very much abreast with what happens in my country, and I know that he wasn't really doing a good job. He wasn't a good president, but he was the head of a nation, and he got assassinated, and his wife is still fighting for her life, and that's not fucking right. That's it. Well, then, on that note, Jojo, I want to tell folks that you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, join our Facebook group. You can also follow us on Twitter. We are Kickin Streamin, and you'll find us everywhere. If you are watching us on YouTube or on Twitch, subscribe. We're here every Saturday at 1 p.m., except for the days that we're not. Anything else, Jojo, you'd like to add?
No, I think that's it.
All right, then. So we're going to call it a day. Thank you very much for watching. And for our friends who listen to the podcast, thank you for listening. See you next time.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye now. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to Kickin Streamin Podcast. If you found value in our content, please subscribe and share. We would also be delighted to hear what you think of this podcast. So please rate us by writing a quick review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on all major social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest. Join the conversation happening today on our Facebook group.